Hello and welcome to Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I'm Stephanie Soebbing. We're continuing our Quiltmas in July series where we're bringing you giftable projects that you can make that are fun, fast, and inexpensive. We are gonna, for our next three, be doing easy bag projects that you can make a ton of for all the friends and family that you have this holiday season. Most of them take less than half a yard of fabric and interfacing and can be done relatively quickly. We're gonna start with the Zip Top Trio. This is a set of 3 coordinating bags and they're really adorable and they're really all very simple. It is just your outside fabric, your inside fabric, and a zipper, and that's it. So if this is your first time making a bag, this is a great one to start with. I think they would make great little cosmetics bags or travel bags so you can nest them when you're not using them and get them out and filled with your toiletries when you are ready to hit the road. Let's take a peek at some of the samples that we have made up to go with this project. You can get them all over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. I've also forgotten all the fun names that we've given them, so we're gonna have a little scroll at the bottom to tell you what it is so you can make sure you get the variation that you like best. So we came up with 6 kits from Anna Maria Horner's Made My Day. It was her latest release from Free Spirit Fabrics, and we thought it would be absolutely fabulous for this because she always has such sophisticated designs and her color coordination is just amazing. So it's perfect for a bag where you have your smallest and your biggest be from the same outside and then reverse that for your middle. It really coordinates really well, and as you can see, they all nest. So we have our biggest bag here, and as you can see, we have the striped lining for the inside, and that one reverses to have the purple on the inside. And then we have yet another, it's like little nesting baskets, and they reverse again. And we have the purple zipper tape with the gold zipper. And as you can see, they all fit nicely right inside of each other, which I love because I have an old small house with not a lot of closet space. So when I'm trying to store my bags, if I can nest them all together like this and save some space, that is fantastic. So if you plan to use these for like travel so you can separate your cosmetics or something, this is fabulous because when you're not using them, you can just nest them all together and keep them stored nice and neat. Let's take a look at some of the other options that we have. All right, here is set number 2. Let's take a close look at these fabrics. This one is more blue with limey green and of course pink because Anna Maria does fabulous color matching. And then our alternate colorway is our blue and lime green. And so this makes a really fun, especially with that blue and gold zipper tape. I think this set is a must-have if you're going anywhere tropical. The big foliage of the green leaves here, combined with, to me, what looks like a Hawaiian print, is just really fun. And the blue top zipper tape with the silver is just really fun and complements it really well. This option is the same print for the outside fabric as the one we're doing on camera, but it's more of a blue colorway. And so we paired that with a rose print as well. This one is really gorgeous. I really love how this orange just pops. And then we still have those beautiful sunflowers. And then for this print, we have those little rose buds on a vine, and they just look really good together. Those oranges really coordinate beautifully and make this a really fun set to have. If you're a fan of wildflowers, and this is going to be the set for you, it actually matches like perfectly with the shirt I'm wearing. This was somewhat planned, but not completely. So this one's really fun. It is just a ton of different wildflowers in all different colors. And then there's this pinstripe with kind of line drawing of what looks like roses to me. It's really gorgeous, a really fun set. And this one has the purple zipper tape with silver zipper material. These, by the way, they look like metal, but they are plastic. So you get that high-end look without the challenges that come with metal zippers that can sometimes get off track and snag and not work very well. This is our last combination. It's really cute, really adorable. Also really matches my shirt. We have this really beautiful floral. It's mostly pink, but of course, you just got to put some contrast in there too. So there's some good blues and greens. And then we have the rosebuds that coordinate really well with those little bits of teal that are in there. And then we have our little one to go with it. This one has the blue top with the silver to pick up on the blue flowers. I love to coordinate. That's the fun part about messing with zipper tape like this, is you can take your zipper foot, and you can stitch really close to that so you don't even see the zipper tape and you just see the metal, well, plastic metal look of the zipper. Or you can really coordinate it, have it be a part of the element and add visual interest to it, which is what we've done with all of these. All of the bags are made the exact same way. They're just different sizes. So make sure you're following along with your pattern instructions for the zip top trio, which you can get over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. If you get a kit, make sure you purchase the pattern separately. We made that so that way you can get multiple kits and not have to ask for a refund for the pattern. All right, so what we want to do is we're going to go a lesson on fusing first. What you want to do is take your fusible interfacing, this is Decor Bond, and you want the shiny side to be up. And then we're going to put our fabric on top of that, matching up our corners. If you've cut everything correctly, this should be the same size. It shouldn't be too off. If it is, and you've done something wrong, go back and check your measurements. All right, now the reason why we have our fabric in between our interfacing and our iron is because it's really easy to accidentally flip your interfacing going the wrong side, and it's a lot easier to pull it off of your ironing surface than it is to get it off of your iron. All right, so with your iron on the hottest cotton setting, you're going to go through and just leave it over the top until it fuses. Each iron is a little bit different in how hot it gets. I don't use steam in mine at all. I just let it be with no steam for this. And I'm making sure that I'm getting my edges and my corners really well, because that's where it tends to lift up a little bit. When you're done, you can flip it over, and I can tell this is fused really well because I'm not seeing like any bubbles or anything when I like kind of move at it. It's all moving as one piece. Sometimes when it hasn't fused quite right, you can tell that it's moving separately, or there might be like a little visible bubble around here. But this is pretty good, and I am good to go with my next step. Now, each size has a different measurement for the square that you're going to mark in the bottom corners. This is what we're going to cut out to create the box corners that will make the bag stand up on its own. If you have directional fabric like I do here, you're going to make sure that you mark it in the bottom corners. You're going to do this for your outer fabric and your lining, and once everything is all marked out, you're just going to snip it out. I like to use my micro tips for this because they have a really sharp tip and are great for working with tiny little bits like this. Now it's time to get our zipper placed. If you get the kit from us, you're already going to have the zipper ready to go with the zipper pull on. And what you're going to do is you're going to lay it so that the zipper is going off to the right over here. And I want to line up the edge of the zipper tape with the edge of the top of my bag. And it's really nice to have everything hanging off just a little bit. I love to use these clips whenever I'm working on bags because they're a lot easier to maneuver than pins. When you're working with all these layers and you've got everything has interfacing on it, it's just a lot easier to make that work. Now, what you need to remember here is that your zipper tape with the teeth and the zipper pull should be facing your outer fabric. And that's important to keep in mind because for your middle size, it's going to flip-flop, and like we saw when we made up our bag sample. So just always make sure that that pole is facing your outer fabric and you'll be fine. All right, once I have that original piece lined up, I'm going to take my lining fabric and lay it right sides together, making sure to line up my edges over here. And then I'm going to reclip. So now I'm clipping all three layers, my outer fabric, my zipper tape, and my lining, and making sure that all those edges are nice and even across the top. Now, whenever I'm piecing, I typically tend to use white thread because it's usually not visible. But when you're making bags, it definitely can see the thread, both for top stitching and sometimes at the side seams. So you want to make sure that you get something that is similar to the fabric that you're using or complements it really well. So I'm going with this purple from Aurifil. Now for this part, you can either use a 1/4 inch foot or a zipper foot in order to stitch your zipper on. What I like to do is use the zipper foot, but don't go all the way to the zipper teeth. That way I can see a little bit of the tape and it can be part of the design element. So I'm just going to start by stitching forward 3 and back 3 to secure it. And then I'm just stitching down to secure all 3 layers. All right, I can feel this bulge here is where my zipper pull is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift up my presser foot, and then I can grab that zipper pull and pull it down. Now I can stitch the rest of the way without it being in my way. All right, now we're going to back it up and secure that. Now we need to press our sides of our bag away from that zipper tape. I'm going to start with the lining. First, I kind of fold it back with that really thick interfacing. It really likes to kind of hold its shape. It makes it really easy. Then I'm just going to press that seam really well. And you can iron over a zipper tape, but don't linger too long. Now we're going to do the same thing with the right side of the bag. Now it's time to repeat those steps, this time with the other half of the bag. So we're going to start by laying right sides together, outsides together. And what you want to make sure you're doing is making sure that your edges are lined up with your piece underneath. So you want your edges to be together at the top, meeting the zipper tape, and on the sides. Now we're going to take our second lining piece and we're going to lay that right sides together with the lining that's facing up. So you should have your outsides right sides together and your inside lining right sides together. And if you've got that, then it's going to look good when it's all done. All right, we're going to stitch down one more time here, and then we are ready to assemble our bag. It's super fast. I told you, it's a really fun project. Next, we're going to do some top stitching. I honestly have no idea what this foot is called, but it's the one we want to use for top stitching if you have it. If you don't, just line it up and do as small of a stitch as you can, like an 1/8 inch stitch. But if you have it, it has a rudder on the bottom that kind of goes in a little bit where the needle is. That way you can line up the rudder with the edge of your bag and you will have nice even top stitching along the edge, as long as you keep that nice and snug as you're going down. I do increase my stitch length to 3.5 whenever I'm top stitching. It's more of a decorative element, so it doesn't need to be so tight. All right, I've hit where my zipper is. I'm gonna lift up that foot. Go ahead and pull down some. Make sure you're not going off the edge. That would be sad. Before we do anything else, I'm gonna go ahead and trim the edges off my zipper tape to make it even with the sides of my bag. All right, now it's time to sew our bag outsides together. We're gonna start by matching our outsides together, and I'm going to clip that first on the bottom. Next, I'm gonna match up the bottoms of my lining. Now, when we stitch our lining together, we need to leave an opening for turning. So what I like to do is put my clip about 1/2 inch in from the side, and that's my reminder of where I'm gonna stop and start so that I can turn the entire bag right side out through an opening we're gonna leave here. All right, at this point, I like to pin my zipper. We want our zipper tape to be folded down toward the lining. So what I do is I fold that back and I try to match up the seams where the zipper tape are. And I'm gonna go ahead and put a clip on that big bulky seam. This is why I like the clips instead of the pins, because I can just go right over the top of that. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. This is going to kind of create a little bit of dimension at the bag top because it's going to kind of curve down over the edges of that zipper. It's really a nice effect. All right, so from here I can go ahead and pin or clip my sides together. And you don't need a ton, just make sure you're getting your corners and then maybe one in the middle. This is pretty stiff at this point if you used all the correct interfacing, so it really wants to lay super flat. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right over here and I'm going to sew just my inch or so from here to the edge, back stitching whenever I stop or start. And then I'm going to pick up sewing around the sides, the outside bottom, and the other side, and then just another inch or so over here. Remember, we want to leave that open so that way we can turn it right side out when we're all done. I've switched to my 1/4 inch foot and stitch for this section. All right, start by reinforcing those seams, stitch all the way to the end, and reinforce again. Now we're just going to keep working our way around, reinforcing those seams whenever we stop or start. All right, now when we get here, obviously I can't leave this clip in anymore because we need to start sewing over that area and the foot's in the way. So I just kind of make sure that it's pressed down so the zipper tape is coming toward the right direction. And then I'm just gonna sew real slowly over this. You absolutely can sew over zipper tape, especially when it's plastic like this, but you don't want to do it at full speed. Now remember, for the outside bottom, we are stitching across the entire thing. All right, we've got one more step before we're ready to turn this bag right side out. Make sure before you do this that your zipper is open on the inside a little bit. You got to be able to get your hand in there. It's gonna be a little hard if it isn't. But I should have said that a little earlier. But hopefully you're watching the tutorial before you do all that. All right, so now we need to box our corners. So what you want to do is just want to flip them so that it's nice and flat like this. And then we're going to flip our seams so that one is going one way and one is going the other. Doesn't really matter what, but you kind of want to stick with that plan. So like for the bottom, I've got it going off to my left here. So that means for the other half of the bottom, I want that to also be going off to my left, which means the side seam is going to go off to my right. And I'm just going to follow that all the way around. So here I've got the seam going to the right. So when I box this corner, we're going to do the same thing. It's going to go that same direction that it went on the other side. It just helps everything lay nice and flat if you pay a little bit of attention to those things as you're going. This is not a huge box pleat or box corner, so I just put one clip over the actual seam itself. For bigger ones, you might want to have one in the corners as well. So now I'm going to work my way around, so I'm going to 1/4 inch seam across each one of these box corners. If it's going to be a bag that gets a lot of wear and tear, you might want to go over it 2 or 3 times, but for these little ones, probably 1 is fine. At this point, you kind of have to do a lot of finagling to get it underneath your piece, because you kind of have to smush the bag, get it out of the way, get things going. So what I like to do is I'm going to, again, reinforce those stitches good 3-4 times at the start. And then I'm going to remove my clip and just kind of push my fingers down on top of this seam to kind of hold it together. And you should be going in a nice straight line across if you've got it cropped correctly. And then when I reach the other end, I'm going to reinforce those stitches again 3-4 times. And then I'm going to move on to the next one and repeat till all my corners are done. Now here comes the most awkward portion of the entire project, and that's turning it right sides out. You're going to stick your hand through the opening that you left. You might have to finagle the zipper open a little wider when you get in there. Grasp your other end and then really gently pull it through. You do not want to be ripping this through, because even though we secured these sides, it doesn't mean that they're not going to rip open a little bit on you if you aren't careful with it. My daughter was learning to make stuffies and she was doing them herself, and I was not there to supervise, and my husband did a turning of a leg, and there had to be much repair to the leg because all of that got ripped out. So you just want to be careful when you're doing that. All right, so before I stuff this lining in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hands in the center and I'm going to poke out those corners. So I got nice little pointy bits there. It's a little easier to do now. And I'm going to stitch this bag bottom close. I know in the past when we've done bag tutorials, I've said, oh, do it by hand. Like I normally do it by hand. But let me show you how to do it by machine too, because let's face it, we don't always have time, especially if you're doing a bunch of these for gifts. You might just want to just do it by machine. So what I do is I get it going in. It should be about a 1/4 inch seam there. So I'm going to, I can see where I started because I've got that little purple thread sticking out. I'm going to put a clip right on there, and then I'm going to get it started on the other side too. Make sure I've got the same amount going in, and just, you kind of have to feel around on that and see how that's feeling for you. Get that there. All right, so that kind of gets it started. And from here, because this decor bond is so stiff, you can kind of almost finger press it in place, and it kind of holds its shape for you. You don't have to do anything fancy. So I'm going to put another clip in the center here. Now I'm going to get out that same, that's wanting to curl up on me here. We might throw one more here. I'm going to get that same foot that I used for my top stitching, and I'm going to stitch really close to this edge just to close that up. And I'm going to use the purple thread because I'm too lazy to change the thread out on my machine. But if you wanted to use, say, a yellow, so that way it's less obvious, you absolutely can do that too. And then we're going to stitch this whole bottom together, and it's at the way bottom of the bag. Let's face it, it's always going to be covered with something. So if you feel like you need permission to stitch this by machine because you don't have time, because you're making a bunch of them for gifts, absolutely go for it. So I'm starting a little bit before where the stitching stops. So I'm going before that opening is. I'm going to reinforce the stitch as always. And then I'm just going like a little bit at a time, taking the clips as I need to and making sure I'm securing both layers, but that I'm really close to that edge because we want this to not take up a ton of real estate. You want the teeniest seam as possible. All right, when you're done, go ahead and backstitch again. So you can see that line because it's purple, it's standing out, but it is really close to that edge. Everything is nice and sealed up. We don't have to worry about things slipping into the lining, but you also didn't have to hand stitch closed, really thick interfaced fabric at the bottom of the bag either. All right, I'm going to shove this inside, get it all shaped up, and then we are done. Now that is a really nice looking bag. You can see it stands up on its own without anything in it. It's because of that interfacing. Now it does soften up a little bit over time, but it still will hold its shape really well and be a nice substantial bag. And we were smart enough to make sure that everything was pointing up with the directional fabric and everything nests inside. So that is so fun. Let me go grab the other ones from this kit just so you can see it all together one more time. All right, so we've got our set of 3. They're absolutely adorable. They go super fast. I filmed this entire thing start to finish in about 45 minutes for the top bag. You can, because the instructions are the same all the way through, if you use the same thread for everything, like I use the purple for the top stitching on my yellow one too, you can chain assemble these. So like you can do all your interfacing at the same time, cut all your corners at the same time, do all your zippers and top stitching at the same time. And that way you can really get through these pretty quickly and really have some fun with them. They're really adorable. They're super cute. I think they would make great handmade gifts, and they're really inexpensive to make. You're looking at a ½ yard of fabric for your outside and your lining, zipper and interfacing, and that's it. So once you get the pattern, you can really go to town on this, make a whole bunch of them, and you probably can use your stash. But again, we've got a bunch of cute kits that you can check out as well over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. All right, we've got a couple more bag tutorials coming up for you. They're both awesome, or super cute, super adorable, super fast, super inexpensive, and make great gifts. So make sure you stay tuned because we've got 2 more coming over the next 2 days. And so you can plan all of your holiday gifting now so that you're not frantically trying to finish it on December 24th. All right, thanks so much, and until next time, happy quilting.